in our closing invocation, the writer says, Charitam Raghunathasya, the greatness of the text of Ramayana is contained Shatakoti Pravistaram. It has the ability to liberate us if even we have fallen and fallen repeatedly in this life, but we become repentant about it. This text, how much of this text we will shortly hear, but this text has the capacity to redeem us in this life and in lives hereafter. How much of this Ramayana? Ekaikamaksharam pumsam. Even one akshar, one syllable listened to reverently and practiced to the best of our ability. That much of Ramayana, such is power. And further to that, Mahapataka Nashanam. And the sins that we commit knowingly and inadvertently that carves the way of destiny, that too has a stay of hand if we listen with devotion to the writings of Sant Tulsidas in this very text before us. We are in Ayodhya Kand, the second chapter, for want of a better word, the second Kand, the second volume of the 7 volumes of. And the situation, the geography is in the forest lands. Shri Ramchandra had not too long made his stay in the forest lands, having volunteered himself into exile, along with Sita Mata and Lakshman. And Bharat, that dear brother of Shri Ram, could not find peace within himself unless he made a concerted effort to woo the Lord back to Ayodhya. So there with his entourage, he approached the Lord, had conversation, and then they were joined by the party of Janak, that is Sita Mata's parents, Janak and Sunaina, and their entourage. They joined into the conversation. And getting into the mind of Sunaina, the mother of Sita, the spouse of King Janak, Sant Tulsidas, she comments that this is a mother who willingly gave her daughter's hand in marriage to a prince regent, to an heir apparent in the form of Shri Ram. And today the news is brought to her, one such news, depressing news, the passing of Emperor Dasrat. And secondly, her daughter, from a palace life and the comforts that accompany a palace life today, she, even though beseeched by Lord Shri Ram, stay back in Ayodhya, she wanted to accompany. She says, my rightful place through thick and thin, my Lord, is at your side. So from a palace life, she's now the wife of an ascetic. And any mother would feel a bit concerned, deeply concerned, if that is the transition that her daughter, who was given in marriage under one circumstance, is now experiencing quite a different end of the spectrum. So with this in mind, bearing this in mind, we hear in the upcoming Doha the writings of Sant Tulsidas. सुनिया सुधा दे किया गराला सब कर तू कराल जह तह काक लूक बक मानस सकृत Sitting in that camp in that night was Sunaina, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra, the three spouses, the three queens of Ayodhya. We have done in satsang, but it's worthwhile to remind one that Dasrat, Emperor Dasrat, the father of Sri Ram, didn't have three wives. We quote Shiv Samhita, Tasam Kriyatu Kaikeyi Sumitro Pasanatmika Jnana Shakti Kaushalya Vedo Dasrato Nipam. That Tasam Kriya, the embodiment of action, karma, which bears fruit, was represented, that abstract was represented in the household of Dasrat by Kaikeyi. Sumitro Pasanatmika, upasana or devotion, bhakti, unalloyed love for the feet of Bhagwan, devotion. She stood, devotion, bhakti was represented in the household of Emperor Dasrat in the form of Sumitra. Jnana Shakti Kaushalya, Kaushalya, the Patarani, the chief queen, represented spiritual wisdom, wise in the ways of divinity, wise in the ways of God, understanding that we have at some point in time to develop a connect between this mortal frame and the eternal divine. She stood as Kaushalya. And who was Dasrat? Vedo Dasrato Nripam. Dasrat was the very incarnation of the Vedas, the source of knowledge. And Tulsidas went at pains to explain that unless our actions are up to par, and those actions are guided by spiritual wisdom, and in the mix of it we have bhakti, in the mix of the knowledge and the actions there's love, unconditional love for God. And to avoid transgressions, we are used as a base source of knowledge, the guide as the Vedas. Unless these four are prevalent, then Ram, God, cannot take place in this Ayodhya. So in Ayodhya, these four qualities, ingredients, if you will, were present so that Ram, Bhagwan, could take avatar. So this was not about a king and three wives. These were the necessary ingredients for Lord to make an entry, to step in. And encamped was, as we say, these three queens and Sunaina. And literally we translate, hear what Sunaina says. Surya Sudha Dekhiya Garala. I have heard of Amrit, but today I see poison. Sabakar Truti Karal. That divide, that great divide, it's horrible. Jahata Kaka Uluka Baka. When I look so, I see crows, which we call in local parlance kobo. I see Ulluka, I see owls. And Bak, I see the bakula, the heron, that species of the duck, the heron. I see these. But I only see Manasa Sakrit Maral. I see but one hans or one swan. And this is, we have said, the master writer, Sant Tulsidas, we have said it, and we'll drum it again, that an average language carries 150,000 words. The mighty Shakespeare exploited 24,000 words. The average human being talks with 3,000 words in his or her vocabulary. Sant Tulsidas exploited all the words of the Hindu dictionary, the Hindi dictionary, the Kosh. Not only in this Ramayana, in all his writings, Vinay Patrika, Duhavali, Kavitavali, etc. Master craftsman. So he brings in here, what is Sunaina talking about? What is the Amrit? What is the, Amrit gives immortality. What is the Amrit she's talking about? Yes. It is said in Ram Chandraji's boyhood days, he spent more time in the company of Kaikeyi than Kaushalya. Because it is said that Kaikeyi fed him Amritam from her fingers. That is declared in Manus Piyush. So, that is his Sudha. and the Garala, from the heir apparent, because preparations were being made for Sri Ramchandraji to approvingly ascend the throne of Ayodhya. And now, just on the opposite side, extreme, he's out into the forest lands. That is poisonous substance that I'm seeing. And who is the crow? Who is the cock? It had to be some contrived plan, because a bird like the crow is considered a base bird. Like the crow, it will feed on carcasses, etc., and find itself in a horrible environment. It had to be a horrible thought. It had to be a human being in the form of a crow who could have come up with a plan that, according to protocol in sovereignty, it's the elder prince, then the next in age and the next in line. But somebody reversed the order. Somebody demanded, some crow demanded that the order be shifted, that the younger ascend the throne and the elder, while having all his faculties, that is Sri Ramchandra, exit the kingdom. Who was that crow? Who was the ulluk? Who was the owl? Who was blind? That they couldn't see that this great transgression of protocol is taking place, and you're not saying anything? Who was that blind owl in the daylight sun of the Raghukul, Sri Ramchandra? The dynasty, the chief of the dynasty of the solar race was present there, and one couldn't see that. You had to be an owl. And who was the buck? You know, the buck? We have to go into a little stand. If we go to the seaside and we observe carefully, it is of a bird practicing Bakula Dhyan. He closes his eyes, or apparently we think he closes his eyes. He stands on one foot like a real yogi. But you know what happened? He's motionless, but he's waiting for the first fish to pass, and he grabs it up. You know how much Hindus practice Bakula Dhyan? We holy fought for Diwali. Babs, we fast in Kartik month. And you're here, as soon as Kartik month finished, Bakula Dhyan is fish and, whatever we might have. I have no sponsor, so I can't say KFC, Royal Castle. But, that's it, So, Sunaina gives the punishing statement again, that who is it? You mean Ayodhya has people who practice false austerities? That they couldn't see this? But, Manasa Sakrita Maral, but I see one Hans. I see one graceful, the Hans, the swan, is the most graceful of birds. And apart from that, the kings keep the swans, because usually the kings will have lakes or a lake, and the Huns, the swans, will, while they go about the lake in the swimming, they will sometimes dive in, take up the oysters. They're not concerned about the pearl in the oyster, so they'll spit it out and they'll take the contents of the oyster and go its way. So the kings would have got riches, as it were. So Sunaina says, but I see one Hans, and that Hans is Shri Ram, because he's the one who, what he leaves behind, he leaves behind riches, not physical riches as pearls, but riches in divine teachings. So Sunaina puts the ball in the court of the Ayodhya, the three Ayodhya Ranis. What happened that caused my lord and my daughter to come out into this harsh environment? Who is going to answer? Is it devotion is going to answer in the form of Sumitra? Is it Kaikeyi in the form of karma? Or is it Gyan, spiritual wisdom? Because all three are powerful. We'll hear and allow Sant Tulsidas ji to lead us.
Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jaya, Jaya Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jaya, Jaya Ram, Shri Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya, Jaya
जो सृजी पाले हरे बहोरी बालकेली समविधि मति भोरी
जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
सुनी सचोच सचोच कह देवी Sumitra of Sumitra proffered an answer. And with grief she says, Vidhi gati bari biparita vichitra. She says, destiny, because it is said that Brahma, the creator, is the writer of destiny. Hence, Vidhi and Bhavi, destiny and Brahma are spoken of interchangeably, meaning the same thing. She says, destiny, bari biparit. When we make all preparation, we think that things should turn out this way, having made the preparation. What happens? It seems as though it didn't happen that way. We blame destiny. But Sumitra, being the incarnation of bhakti, devotion, says, Vichitra, this same destiny can turn out to be good. You know, in the field of science, you know how many times scientists set about a hypothesis, so they want to prove so and so. And at the end of the day, the result was something different but beneficial. Many medications are done like that. They research something in high blood pressure and they find a drug and they come up with something that was not necessarily helping high blood pressure, but was of benefit in other uses. It happens throughout life. Then the question begs that, well, how do we make destiny like this? There are simple little tools we can use as Sanatanists to lay the foundation whereby things could, destiny could be carved in a beneficial way. Every day we have a chance. Pratam Puja, the very first god of worship for all Sanatanists, is Bhagwan Ganesh. And as we have often said, Ramayana and all the books, they were written for the world. And Ganesh Baba represents, among other things, the knowledge base of God. So if we don't belong to the faith of Sanatana Dharma and to any other faith, all the tip is here to bring that form of God, which God, the God of one's liking and understanding, where the knowledge facet of that God we can focus on. So we bring it to Hinduism, Ganesh Baba, that is Ganesh. So every day when we go out on mission, the child goes to school, the householder goes to work. Even if those who are at home, maybe retired, maybe unemployed or seeing about home, they too have errands to run. And before we go out, we ought to take the name of Pratam Puja. So is it simply saying Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha or Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha? That is good. But we should carry prayer to a higher level, depending on the direction we live. Each country could be divided into, 10 quarters. As we are in south, the favored name of Bhagwan Ganesh is Vignesha. So, switch it around. Rather than Om Gam Ganapati Namaha, Om Shri Vigneshaya Namaha. And we take that name as a student, as we say, whoever is heading out, that's an intake reverently every day. That singular maneuver can help to shape and carve destiny, where destiny becomes Vichitra. Further to that, as we just pointed out, there are different directions we go. If we are in south and we're heading up north to work, one ought to take, among other things, the guardian of the very quarter. Kuvera Devta rules the northern part of any country, so we are heading off to school or to work from south to north. Om Shri Kuvera Devaya Namaha. Prostrations to that facet of Bhagwan known as Kuvera Devta, who represents wealth. And as we know, wealth puts us in a comfort zone. So if we are not in the folds of Sanatana Dharma, we are referring to that God of our lightness and understanding, whose facet puts us in a comfort zone. And these are it's not time consuming. We're probably in the taxi, we're probably in the car. Not necessarily have to be there in mainstay puja room. we're setting about on undertakings. These are little subtle maneuvers Sanatanists put into place where bhavi or where destiny becomes vichitra. And we can go deeper and deeper because you know who's speaking here? Sumitra. Devotion incarnate. She goes on, Jo Sriji Palai Hare Bahuri. He who creates, sustains and dissolves. Balakeli Samabidhi Mati Bhori. And he does it just like play, by the mere beat of his brow, proverbially speaking. Brahma could change things, the Creator could change things for us. It's like child's play. And Sumitra says, so we have to be in a state of preparation. Like, you know, the motto of the Boy Scouts is to be prepared. Sanatanists have to be prepared that come hell or high water, I have made my best effort and I have put God in front. And then that bhavi, that destiny could become vichitra or beneficial. Sant Tulsidas, whose birthday we celebrate today, inadvertently, while in his quest for Shri Ramchandra, inadvertently offered water after his morning ablutions. And that water was like Tilanjali. We all know what Tilanjali is, offering to the ancestors, to the mains. And it was absorbed by a wandering soul, a wandering prait. And that gave redemption to that wandering prait. And the wandering prait says, listen, you have done me a great good. And in return, I bless you. What do you seek? When Tulsidas explained his predicament, that he was in search of the Supreme, he was guided. Tulsidas was guided by the blessings of that prait to find first Hanuman Baba, and then he will lead you there. And we all can pick up the katha from that point in time. Suffice it to say that destiny, whether we do it in a very covert manner or in an overt manner, either way, it can be changed for one's benefit, all because of the graces of Bhagwan. Even Bharat had said, Soi gosai jo vidhi kari teki, sakai kutari tek jo teki. Bharat had said, when in this conversation with Sri Ramchandra, what is going on here, Soi gosai jo vidhi gati cheki, whatever Brahma has designed for us, the only person who can take it away is the Supreme. So Sanatanists must understand that we don't live in watertight compartments, that when something happened, boy, it had to happen. It don't necessarily have to happen unless we have reached advanced years and it's time to exit. Nothing has to happen. Bharat made that declaration. We can change it, but it calls for efforts. It calls for, a bit of structure in prayer and, undertakings as Sanatanists. We hear further.
Jaya Jaya Rama, Shri Rama Jaya Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
Kaushalya kah doshan ka, karma vivasha dukha sukha kshati lahu.
Ram 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 bolo, Ram Ram Ram, Ram 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 bolo, Ram Ram Ram.
Kathina karma gati jana vidhata, jo shubha ashubha sakala phaladata.
Jai Ram Shri Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
Though deep in contribution, the contribution of Sumitra did not quench or quell the thirst of Sunaina, who was still discomforted by the fact that her daughter-in-law, that didn't change the price of cocoa, so to speak. Her daughter-in-law was still in the hardships of the forest lands. So then Gyan, spiritual wisdom in the form of Kaushalya, made her contribution. And she said, Kaushalya kah dosh na kahu. It is futile to blame anyone for what has transpired. God forbid we carry a sick into the hospital and the person passes away, and the first thing we want to do is blame doctor, blame one, blame that one. Kaushalya, a Jnani understands we cannot cast aspersions and cast blame like that. You think they'd ever take any doctor and train them for 5 years to kill people? A bit of Jnana, a bit of spiritual understanding will tell us no. People make their best efforts, so it is futile to cast aspersions. So says Kaushalya, because she is reining in the sentiments of Sunaina, who is wondering what happened in Ayodhya. So she quickly steps in a very curt manner. She says it's futile to blame anybody. Karma vivash dukha sukha kshatilahu. Losses and gains, birth and death, all these, pleasure and pain, all these are because of karma. Emperor Dashrath, and we take us quickly down to the history because we all are satsangi people here. No need to spend too much time. But when Emperor Dashrath went after that infuriated beast, that elephant that was provoking the citizens of Ayodhya on the outskirts, and mistakenly, he shot by his sound, mistakenly he shot Shravan Kumar, who was at the time fetching water to give to his blind parents. And when he carried the corpse before the parents, that is Dashrath, having given him a fatal, struck fatally with the arrow, he got shrapnel. And the parents said, well, just as we suffer the pangs of separation from our son, so too, one day you will suffer those same pains. So Kaushalya says, what has transpired here, the separation of son from father, Ram from Dashrath, is but the decree of karma, is the decree of actions. So, do we hang it there? That whatever we have done in the past, there is no atonement. We cannot change the picture? Kaushalya is not finished. Kathina karma gati jana vidhata. Brahma, who is the writer of destiny, of what happens to us, he knows when the actions that we do are katin, are coarse, are premeditated wrongdoing. He knows that. We can't fool God. Jo shubha ashubha sakal paladata. And he knows that sometimes we do an action, it's not premeditated, probably there was not enough control of the senses. We reacted in a manner, we caused hurt, and God forbid fatal hurt, fatal pain. And that too, we reap a degree of such actions. So Kaushalya is pointing the way. We have to be careful about actions. Then did Dashrath not exercise care when he shot and without looking and finding out what target it was? It dates back previous to that. In his previous incarnation as Manu and Kaushalya as Kshatripa. After their austere penances, they heard an aerial voice. They wanted to hear from God. And God said, I will come to in your household when you come as Dashrath and Kaushalya. And of the things that were asked, Kaushalya asked that I have bhakti. I have that deep love for your feet. And I must be always conscious that you are the supreme. And what did Dashrath ask for? Dashrath in the form of Manu. He says, I want to be like, you are the water and I am the fish. And if you take the water away from the fish, then the fish will perish. So Dashrath, what's happened to him, his passing as the proverbial or metaphorical fish, is because the water in the form of Ram was asked, volunteered himself. A boon was answered to by Dashrath, and Ram Chandraji exited, the water exited Ayodhya. So it's under those circumstances. You can't floor Dashrath for his actions. It goes beyond that. Kaushalya says, be guarded about our actions. Bhagavad Gita goes at length. Perform action without looking for reward, save and accept 3. Hopefully in Katha we'll talk about those 3, but perform actions without looking for reward, and that will take care of destiny, of the rough road. A fall will become a stumble if we keep our actions good and not looking for any reward. A Scottish farmer, sometimes they say, Baba, them Puran things, we can't read Hindi, so we give you an English example. a Scottish farmer heard the cry of a child, a boy child. And when he went after that child, he saw the child was caught in what you will call a bog, like a quicksand. So the child was going down, and the farmer stretched forth his tool and pulled the boy out, cleaned him up, fed him. And late in the evening, before any inquiry could go on, a nobleman came at the doorway of the farmer and was grateful that the farmer had saved that child, because that was his son who went wandering. And the nobleman says, well, what can I do? I see, you're a little bit destitute. He says, I didn't save your son for anything, I'm happy that I saved a life. Take him back. And that very farmer had a son too, and he came peeping with children, inquisitive. And the nobleman saw the child. He says, well, listen, I want to do something for you. Let me take that child. You will meet from time to time. Let me educate that child. Let me sponsor that child like a scholarship in education. And the farmer says, well, at least my destiny is so good. My boy might have it better. And so that little boy, that farmer boy, was educated. And he became a doctor, a very popular doctor. Anybody who from the early 20th centuries, I don't mind here, you know that. That doctor went on to discover penicillin. His name, Alexander Fleming. What that had to do with this here, with actions? Well, the boy who was saved turned out to be a very renowned Prime Minister of England. He contracted pneumonia, and it was penicillin that saved his life. And that boy, Sir Winston Churchill. So we go back to karma. The actions of the farmer was just to save. He wasn't looking for any reward. But Newton's third law of motion, as we have often said, to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We don't have to look for fruit. Do good, it will come to you. So that very farmer who saved the boy, that turned out to be a renowned Prime Minister. And that is because of the goodness of the father, the nobleman. And so too, the Scottish boy was able to save the very nobleman's son. Perform good actions. Don't look for reward. Nobody was looking for reward in that little anecdote there. Perform good actions, and destiny has an uncanny way of making our actions come to fruition. We hear further as Kaushalya continues.
Jai 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 Shri Rama, Jai 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 Shri Rama, Jai 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 Shri Rama.
Ishara Jaya Shisha Sabahi Ke Utapati Titilaya Bishahwami Ke Jai Ram Sri Rama Jaya Jaya Rama, Sri Rama Jaya
Rama Jaya Jaya Rama.
Devi Moha Vasha Sochyavari Vidhi Prapancha Asa Achala Anadi.
Jai 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 Shri Rama, Jai 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 Shri Rama, Jai 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 Shri Rama, Jai 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 Shri Rama.
Kaushalya continues on action. She says, Ishara Jaya Shisha Sabahike. Everybody has to bow down to the will of God. Equally, Kabahuka Karikarunar Dehi, Deta Isha Binuhetu Sanehi. Ramayana tells us that God is a democratic God. Kabahuka Karunanar Dehi. Very rare we get a human form. And when we do get a human form, Deta Ish Binuhetu Sanehi. God ain't looking for you to, well, I give you life, I give you the form, the highest form as human being, then return your gratitude to me. He didn't ask that. Deta ish binuhetu sanehi. Unconditional. He has love for us. But one of the quotes, there are three fortes that every Hindu should be conversant with, should put as practice, and that is mail, not email, boy. But mail means connection. Well, probably email is connection too, not Facebook. So mail, connection, Prem, love. Don't hate people. People who rob you wrong, be civil to them. You don't have to hate them. Ankritagita, gratitude. And that is the quality as human beings we have to bring to the fore. It is embedded here. It helps to differentiate us from the animal kingdom. And that is the one we should bring to the fore. So, Kaushalya Mata is saying at least we should show some gratitude to He who has given us life, which is a gift. Utpati Titi Laya Bishahu Amike. He is the one who we have to understand when we make that connect. And now we have gone past Brahma here, because it has been established, hopefully, that what Brahma put down through karma, God the Supreme, whether it's Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Shri Ram, whichever form we like, He can change the writings of Brahma. And we understand that Supreme, He is the one who gives Brahma the tool or the power to create. He is the one who gives Vishnu Bhagwan the power to sustain. And He too fortifies Bhagwan Shiva to dissolve the negatives. And further to that, Vishahu Amike, He can convert poison into nectar. And people say, Babs, well, better say once upon a time, the Aesop fables, how you could turn poison into something that is Amrit, just the opposite. Well, Rana, the husband of Meera, in an effort to destroy her, what do you give her? Tulum? You give she poison. And she was adept in the love for Bhagwan Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And when she partook of it, it didn't have any destructive qualities to her. Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad, wanted to destroy him. Before he put Holika in the brew, what he did? He gave him poison. And what he says, Om Shri Ramaya Namaha. It didn't have any effect. And then Jagat Pita Bhagwan Shiva, when everybody back away from Halahal, what did he do? He took it in by the ram coming from the Nabhi. The poison got locked in his throat. That is why he's known as the blue-throated god, Nilakant, not the blue-bodied god. Nilakant, the blue-throated god. Because poison had to take its effect, but it didn't destroy him. So when Kaushalya made the pronouncement that God has the power to convert even poison and remove the ill effects of poison, the toxic effects of poison, it has been recorded in Sanatan Dharma. And we could carry it on to Western history. King Frederick, the same thing happened there. That is the power of making the connect to the Supreme, says Kaushalya Mata. Devi Mohavasha Sochiyavari. So she turns to Sunaina and she says, "O Devi, don't be deluded by moha, by ignorance, or by a lack of knowledge of the circumstances that cause this traumatic experience. Vidhi prapancha asa achal anadi." But that which God, destiny carves for us, it may appear achal, it may appear immovable. Anadi, it may never end. We have a little turmoil and say, well, this troubling will ever end. It appears so. That is Brahma's writing, but there is somebody who rewrites the script above. Our duty is to try and make a fast connect with that person, the Supreme Master. Kaushalya continues, Chopai.
Raghupati Raghav Rajara Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram Raghupati Raghav Rajara
Bhupati Jiya Bamarab Urani Shochiya Laksi Sati Dija Hitahani Siyamatu Kaha Satya Subhani Sukriti Avadhi Avadhapati Rani.
Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram Raghupati Raghav Rajara Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram
Rupati Jiyab Marab Urani. She says, O Devi, O Sunaina, that whether Dashrath was alive or now that he has passed on, Shochiya Sakhi Lakhi Nija Hitahani. We look at situations in life and say, well, that is beneficial and that is not beneficial. Most times we say, well, the passing of someone is not beneficial. Sanatan, the people who are Sanatans have to understand that if one has lived good, generally on the scale of karma, the good outweigh the bad actions, then definitely, premised on the laws of karma, the concrete laws, unchanging laws of karma, such a person will have a higher birth. So when one passes on, and hopefully having run the full relay of life, but even if they didn't, but most of their actions were good, there is no need for those who have sung as Sanatanis to grieve, because that person is going to a higher form, definitely. And what about if the person's actions were not so good? Or we shouldn't be judgmental. If we are not sure whether they're going up or down when they reincarnate, then God in His mercy has given us a form of redress in the form of Shraddha. When you see someone has passed on, that 10-day ceremony is of immaculate importance in Sanatana Dharma. That is leading up to Dasgatra. Those 10 days when we are told to take off salt and so forth from the diet, and the males are asked to shave their head. All these things temper the senses. When we shave the head, we remain focused. Every time we go to the mirror, we remain focused. Hey, why is my head shaven? It is because I am on a mission here. What mission? I am giving redress to my father, mother, uncle, aunt, nana, aji, who has passed on. And God has provided this period whereby by the offering of Tilanjali in the morning and by the simple lighting of a diya in the evening, culminating on the 10th day, what we call the shaving day, the Dasgatra, when the pindas are offered to sustain that individual who has passed on, then we have, as I say, we have redress to give to the person. And if we want to know the power of that redress, I quote Garud Puran. And Garud Puran says, Asura Danava Daitya Vidranti Telaistata. Meaning that a single black till, as we know, when we do Tilanjali on our morning, we take a lot of black till, 1 grain of black till. When offered, the Danavas, the Rakshasas that came from Danu, the Daityas, the Rakshasas that came from Diti, and Asuras, all other Rakshasas, they flee away once till is offered to anybody. So what do we do? What benefit of offering Tilanjali? That handful of till, not 1 till, a handful. We ensure that wherever that close person who has passed on is, they are not going to be tormented and tantalized by the negative forces. Garud Puran goes on to say, Dahantute papani sharirena kritani vai, that a single black till grain takes care, and I read slowly, Dahantute papani, Dahantute me papani, pap is sin, Dahantu burns, destroy. The offering of 1 single black till destroys the wages of sins of those who have passed on. So what the grief is about? Yes, we miss the company, but as we have often said in satsang, to live in the hearts of those we leave behind is not to die. We have to cherish, we don't run down here permanent, but we have to leave a legacy that, whatever comes up, we name call, because there's something constructive, something popping up, whoever we have impacted upon. And in Kaushilya, that is why Gyan had bought this conversation. Sumitra with Bhakti was very deep. Sunaina wanted her superficial fears and concerns to be attended to. So Gyan had to step in. Kaushilya had to step in and tell her, if you came here with grief because of the passing of Dashrath, let me put that to rest. And you came here for grief because your daughter and son-in-law, who you consider a swan, is now in the forest lands. She will attend to that. But she's on one very, very clinical here. Kaushilya is coming down. But the message is more than to Sunaina, It is to us. How we acknowledge death, how we take death in stride. Sunaina was no limited intellect person. She was his spouse of Janak. And she commented, Siya Matu Kaha Satya Subhan. She says, oh Kaushalya, I absorb what you have said. Sukriti Avadhi Avadapati Rani, but I couldn't expect anything different, because you are the spouse of an emperor like Dasrat. That's a powerful statement, Sunaina, in simple words, is saying, when we keep good people company, it's supposed to rub off. And that is what infuriated Gautam, when Indradev visited. It was no dalliance as the slack translations tell us, And we have dealt with that in Satsang. So that infuriated Gautam. So when a spouse spends time with a husband, they're supposed to feed off each other. There's a way that the husband tries to take that diamond he has and take off the rough edges. And there's a way the wife has to, the husband too is a diamond, shape it and make it a valuable gem. And they're supposed to feed off each other. It's supposed to happen. If it had happened, then that Ganana didn't check up properly. Young people say, Bab's a long time thing. Well, I assure you that Ganana ain't no long time thing. There's a mathematical calculation about it. So, if a Ganana is done and people feed off each other and both people become better individuals. And this is what Sunaina is saying, that you have kept the company of Dasrat. We'll return to that momently, but there's more to it. When a chela spend times with a guru, the greatest compliment any chela could get is, boy, you remind me of your guru. It means that something rub off. And, we could go on and on. Even a student, a batch of students meet years after, and let me say they're in the field of chemistry, and they bring up a theory. They say, boy, like you went so-and-so college, what, boy? You had so-and-so teacher, because the goodness and the wisdom of such a person would have rubbed off on them. It's supposed to happen. Keeping the good company, things supposed to happen. And that is essentially what Kaushalya Mata is being told by Sunaina. But returning to Dasrat. What among the great qualities of Dasrat? What about the guru he employed? Or I shouldn't say he employed. The guru he was fortunate to have, Guru Vasisht. What is it about Guru Vasisht that Emperor Dasrat went all out to keep him as guru of that household? And that allegiance to Guru rubbed off on Kaushalya. She showed the same respect, deep respect and love for Vasisht. So we go down Quranic history. Who was the enemy of Ayodhya, the enemy of the world? Was Ravan. And Ravan had a great guru, but Ravan had genetically, he came from Pulastya, the son of Brahma. Brahmaji, the creator, has many sons. So all his sons of Brahma came from different eras. Which era Pulastya came from? Who could have matched Pulastya? If Ayodhya had to produce the one to vanquish Ravan, it had to be someone who was tutored by the equal of Pulastya. Vasisht, Pulastya, the first Saptarishi, the first batch of 7 rishis, like today we have Kashyap, Atri, Vasisht, Vishwamitra, etc. The first batch of the Saptarishi, 2 of the 7, one was Pulastya and one was Vasishta. You think Dasratha didn't know that? Would he sell the Raghukul cheaper? No, he knew how to teach or how to keep it a guru, because the guru's teaching is going to sustain you and sustain the world. But it goes further than that. When during his meanderings in the forest, Sri Ramchandraji went off course purposely to encounter Atri Muni. And Atri Muni belonged to that first set of 7. So Atri, Sri Ramchandra went to get fortification the part of man. He could have destroyed Ravan without that. But he's showing man that when it comes to Guru, you have Diksha Guru, you have Vidya Guru. Tap into them and fortify yourself to take on the battle of life. And further to that, Surya Prayanayam, most of the people sitting here from SVV know about that. How you does Puja Surya Swami. And we do that in satsang, right? We don't like to belabor point over and over, you know. We have plenty of things to talk about. So we pick up the katha from there. What about Surya Prayanayam? Who is the Rishi of this month? Angira. So all we're saying when you go to Surya in the morning, you're running some prayers, 7 short lines, and one is Om Shri Angira Rishaye Namaha. That taking you seconds. But you know what you do? You plug in, you put in something in a 220 volt. Because Vasisht, Pulastya, Atri, and Angira were 4 of that first 7. So we have opportunity. We don't know it. We squander it. We have opportunity every month of Ashad to touch in, to fortify ourselves with the blessings of these great souls. So the battles of life we can fight. Not physically fight, but we could withstand. We could fall, dust your pants, get up and fight the battle of life. And this is where Kaushila is heading. And this is where Sunaina Rara is giving the resume. She didn't feel hurt by the contribution of Kaushilya. She acknowledges the wisdom that Kaushilya is passing on through her to the medium of the world. We hear in the upcoming Doha. Lashan Ram Siya Jahi Bana Bhal Parinaman Pocho Rama Bhal Parinaman Poch Gah Barahiya Gah Kaushila Mohi Bharat Kar Soch Siyapati Kaushilya now addresses the other concern of Sudaina. First, as we say, quick reminder, was the passing of Dasrath. And secondly, was the conditions, the physical conditions her son-in-law, her dear son-in-law Ramchandraji and her daughter Sita had to undergo for 14 years in the forest lands. So Kaushilya says, Lachana Ramasya Jahibana. The volunteer exile of Lakshman, Ram and Sita, and my oh my, there's a reason why the order is given as Lakshman, Ram and Sita, but it is beyond our time constraints. Another time, another satsang, suffice it to say, the order was carefully chosen. Bhala Parinamana Poch. Kaushilya says that their exit created good. There was a good about it. No poach. There was no losses in that movement. And quickly, Pita Dina Mohikana Raju, Jahasapabati Modaparkaju. And we go right down the gamut, whereby Ram Chandraji had told Kaushilya earlier, Uma, if I remain in Ayodhya, Ravan cannot enter because of a previous encounter with Dasrath. And how will Ravan be destroyed? So there was good that Shri Ram Chandri had to go out. And once there is action involved, karma. So Kaikeyi didn't have to contribute in a conversation. So too we, if we consider ourselves having a dear friend, if we have respect for our siblings, if we have love for parents, if we have respect for Guru, and if we have some sort of courtesy to extend to our fellow man, and they get in a jam, and it could be embarrassing by the conversation. And Kaushilya didn't allow, because of the love she had for Kaikeyi to respond. She responded and she says, well, you see, karma, dominated by Kaikeyi, had to take place so that Ram will shift, physically shift, action, physically shift out of Ayodhya. And, O Devi, remember in the beginning of time, for the avatar to take place, Mother Earth took the form of a cow and they went to all the devatas. So for Mother Earth's sake, O Devi, the Lord had to move out from Ayodhya to destroy Ravan, because Ravan was perpetrating his sins, and Mother Earth thought the sins, the wages of those sins was too much to bear. Don't take that statement lightly, because when Hanuman Baba met Sri Ramchandri after 20 odd years, Aage chale bahuri daag kathina bhumi komal pargami, first thing Hanuman talk about, he says, kathina bhumi, this rough earth, why are you barefooted? Because the Lord says, she came to me earlier, and she'll have to wait a further 14 years to be redeemed of these burdens. So what? Katina Bhumi, I give her my feet, I give her the splash of my feet to bring solace and comfort to that point in time comes, to that great Waterloo of Ravan comes. So, Kaushalya tells her, it is for the sake of earth that movement had to take place. It is for the sake of Sugriv, because Sugriv, having been thrown out by Bali, wrongfully of course, had to get ascension to the throne. And who was Sugriv? He was of the Solar dynasty. For the sake of Parivar, family has to mean something, Ramayana, if we have to listen to Ramayana, eat prasad, eat curry, and go around the road and fight with your fellow man, with brother and with sister, with nephew and with niece, then don't go Ramayana. That is sacrilegious. Sugriv didn't ask to be enthroned, but he was of the Solar dynasty. So what did the Lord do? He had to move out of Ayodhya to cause the destruction of Bali, so that Sugriv, of the same nata, of the same connection, filial connection, for him to be comforted. So the wars that occur between neighbor and neighbor, between brother and sister, between even those we consider as brothers and sisters, that war has to stop if we profess to be Satsangi people. So, Kaushalya is telling the world how to live. So she says, it's for that reason too, he moved out of Ayodhya. And there are many reasons, but then Vibhishan, in the entire Lanka, the only, the one who was perpetually chanting the name of Bhagwan, had bhakti, was Vibhishan. So bhakti has always been out. It was time Vibhishan reaped the rewards. He wasn't looking for it, but it's time he reaped the rewards of his living in Lanka, living among all the negative forces, still didn't give in. Sometimes peer pressure, you're going in school, and your peers want to beat up on you. What do? You do give in? No, you don't give in. You be civil and stand your stand, because the Lord is observing. And Vibhishan withstood the pressure for how long? But at the end of the day, he became the very person they denounced and wanted to berate, became the king of Ayodhya. For these and many, many reasons, the Lord shifted. Gahabara here, Kaushalya, Mohi Bharat Karashoch. She says, but you will be grieving, all of you here, grieving for the wrong person. We should be grieving for Bharat. Just a line of a chaupai. This is the endorsement of God, what he taught of Bharat. And the chaupai says, Tata Bharata Tuma Sava Vidhi Sadhu Prabhu Charano Me Prema Agadhu Tina Kala Tribhu Tata Bharat Tumasabhavidi Sadhu. Ramchandra says, Bharat, you're a sadhu in every of your actions, in your thoughts, in your words, you're a sadhu. Why? Prabhu Charano Me Prema Gadhu. You have fathomless love for my feet. So a sadhu is not necessarily one who does have the TV, had time for Jovi and boss. A sadhu is not the one with the longest chulki and the biggest beard. A sadhu is one who has profound love for the feet of God. That whatever decision, whatever pronouncement that sadhu or sadhwine makes, it is rooted in love for God. And that is the Bharat we talk about. And Sri Ram went for the Tina Kal Tribhuvan Matmore. If he says in the past, present and future, oh Bharat, Punya Shloka Tatavrashkori, I were to gather all the sadhus and sadhvines of these 3 ages, then you stand much more tall, you stand taller, and they are dwarfed by your presence, O Bharat. So Kaushalya is saying, we're grieving for the wrong person. How this person who has intense love for God is going to deal with his absence in Ayodhya, we hear in the Chaupai. प्रसाद शीश तुम्हारी सुत सुत वधुदेव सरिवारी राम शपथ में कीन्हन काऊ सो करी सखी का हो सती भाऊ सो करी सखी का हो सती भाऊ शील गुण विनय बराई भायप भक्ति भरो सभलाई कहत शारदहु कीमति हीचे सागर सीप की जाहि उलीचे सागर सीप की जाहि उलीचे Prasad Shish Tumhari. Kaushalya says, Devi, Isha Prasad, by the grace of Bhagwan and by your blessings, Sunaina, Sutta Sutta Vadhu, all his sons, Bharat, Lakshman, Shatrugna, and Sri Ramchandra, Sutta Vadhu and all his daughters-in-law, they were Sarivari, they are like, they are as pure as the waters of the holy Ganga. We could understand by the grace of God things has happened, but where Sunaina fit in this? How come Kaushalya is stamping that along with God's grace is the prowess, the substance of Sunaina has created such pure sons-in-law and daughters? How come? Because we have to go to Chanat Neti. There was a quality of Sunaina that comes to the fore here, and Chanat says, Kokilanam Soro Rupam Nari Rupam Pativratam Vidya Rupam Kurupanam Kshama Rupam Tapasvinam. That, the nightingale, the Kokilanam, the nightingale is not a pretty bird, But boy, if you hear it sing, now them, 3 of them in there, them is not, them pretty. So them is not, we not about all, you always sing around pretty. Well, blush self now. Kokilanam, but really and truly the sweetest singing bird is the nightingale, but it's not nice in appearance. But what makes it attractive to one, it's its voice. And Vidya Rupam Kurupanam, someone might, you're watching at a physical appearance, say, what's wrong with them? But when they hear they talk, and some of the brightest minds that have pervaded this world were people who have to take a second look at. But that is not the beauty. The beauty is their knowledge, their power, their insatiable appetite to learn and to learn and to discover new horizons. Kshama Rupam Tapasvanam, and the hallmark of a sadhu is his or her ability, sadhu or sadhvain, to forgive people. And Nadi Rupam Pativratam, the fidelity of a wife to a husband, of a husband to a wife, but in this case, of a wife to a husband, that is the hallmark of a female who is wedded. This class, which is held in these compounds, we went down those corridors. When we talk about being faithful, it's a three-faceted machine. You have, if one is unfaithful, you could be unfaithful in fidelity. You could be faithful but flirting. And then the very dangerous one, which we have discussed, is humoring. If one has gone past and has secured these, then one is qualified as a married person, a married female, to be a pativrata practitioner. And that has its own merits. And here, Kaushalya, who is entitled, she is the embodiment of wisdom, to make a pronouncement, to make a recommendation. She says, Sunaina, by the power of your allegiance to your spouse, King Janak, blessings coming from such a parent, from such a mother, must keep the children and the in-laws pure. Rama shapat mai kinhan kau, so kari sakhi kahau sati bhau. She says, I swear by Shri Ram. Why she says that? She says, I've never done that. But today I swear by Ram because he is privy to what I am going to say. And she says, Bharat shil guna vinay barai, bhayap bhakti bharos balai. Now, those who do English language, when we just indicated earlier that Tulsidas was a master craftsman, here and tell me what is this? Bhayap bhakti bharos balai, alliteration. The only thing that Tulsidas ever taught was spoonerism. You know spoonerism? When they did first see Victoria, remember when they called me? Say, Babs, when I see she, my knees get weak. They wanted to make your knees get weak. So that is, it's fun language. Tulsidas didn't have that. But every other part of language is inside this very text that is before us. And those are not idle words, and we come back to that. We're going to come back to them that alliteration. We go ahead. Kahata Sharda Huki Mati Hiche. Tulsidas says that even Saraswati Mata could describe those qualities of Bharat. You know why? There's 7 qualities here. We'll quickly call them and quickly identify. Bharata Shil. Bharat was never ruffled. Shil means composed. Binay, Namrata. He was humble. Barai. He had an aura about him. He didn't carry himself with an aura, but his good actions created an influential aura. Bhayap. Talk about brotherly love. Bharat was the epitome of that. Bhakti, devotion, unalloyed love for God. Bhakti was a shining example of that. Number 6, Bharos, implicit faith in God, could not be shaken, his faith. Bharat was an example of that. Bhalai, and as far as doing good to the world, that was Bharat. Now these 7 qualities, Manaspu says, they are like 7 oceans. So when you start it about one ocean, it will take how much Janma? So she says, Kaushalya rightly says, even Sarada, even the goddess of speech, struggles to describe the 7 noble lakshan or habits of Bharat, natural disposition that could best be described him. Sagar Sipa ki jahi uliche, that it is like taking an oyster to empty the ocean. That is virtually impossible. So too, it is virtually impossible to recount the glories, the good habits, the exemplary habits of Bharat. And Kaushalya reminds us that the grief is not about the discomfort, the physical discomfort of Raman, Sita and Lakshman. The grief is about how does a person deal with separation from God. Bharat had the physical presence of God in Ayodhya. Shishupanate parihare unasangu kabahunakina mor brabangu May Prabhu Kripa Riti Jiajoy Hare Ukel Jitayo Mohi. Bharat, tell me that. He says, sometimes when I used to play with Ram in the courtyard of Ayodhya, that when we play a game of marbles, for instance, and the Lord will win all the time, You know, as we just saying about, you just always pitch, always play computer. Your knocks come in, right? Mario Kart and things cause that, you know. Let me go back to the old time days. So in a game of marbles, when Sri Ram will win continuously, and he will notice a little frown on Bharat's face, what he will do? The daughter will purposely lose, so Bharat will savor the taste of victory. He says, that is Ramayana. That is the brotherly love that we had. And Kaushalya is saying how one who has connected with the Lord in that manner, how he going to deal 14 years would look like 14 jaram for Bharat, and that is where the grief is. That is where our concern is. As not that is only about Bharat, that is where our concern is. We just allow God to live this Ayodhya, you know. He don't walk out. We just push him out. And I say, Baba being rhetorical here. Well, let me walk down the road. This is August vacation. Who ain't going Miami, going, I know way, Ural tour, we all going. And if we go in Canada to meet relatives, well, we had a pak kuchila, chalta, achar, pepper sauce, and you know, how much you could squeeze in the suitcase. And how much time we put in, we take time to put in a little Ganesh. Especially if you're going in a hotel. If you go in my family, you might have a little Ganesh and thing, hopefully. We're going in a hotel to see. How much time we pack the kuchila and we pack this and we pack that. And we pack the lifesaver cricks, boy. How much time we put in the little Ganesh? It's so small. It had one rider, so small. The suitcase didn't have room for that. And we profess to have love for God. What happened for the 2 weeks that we gone in Miami or we gone to Disney World? He on vacation too. Listen, let me not play semantics here. Let me not say, well, Babs, when I go, I just take my little thing in the morning and consider it. Yeah, the reason why Hindus worship murtis, we don't worship murtis, you know. The murtis is a focus for our attention. So don't play semantics and really hold it in mind. You know, that has its demerits too. So we had time to put that in there. And we say, well, you know, we is devotee of God. That should be the first thing inside the suitcase, man. The very first thing. And we had to carry the whole repertoire. Ganesh, he go work because he's the God of travel. He's the God of removing obstacles. So he go fit the mold. Just carry a little Ganesh and we're good to go. So this is the concern of Kaushalya and Sunaina. That what are we doing? We should pattern Bharat, but what are we doing? Bharat went in Nandigram, but his Ram was with him. We just go here, there, and way, and you know, we tend to God. And this was not idle sentiments of Bharat. You know, Bharat at once says, Prabhu apane ni chahu adarahi, agni dhoom giri shritrin dharahi. You know, on a bright day when we're going up from south to north on a bright day, and we watch the greenery and the undulating hills of the plains of Karini, and we watch the greenery that grace the ground, and we look up at the mountains. This is the mountain green and nice and picturesque. You know, were it not for the mountain, you wouldn't see the grass. And Bharat says, Prabhu apane nicha hudari. If I, Bharat, my name is called anywhere in satsang, it's not because Bharat was great. Bharat is only the grass. But the mountain, Shri Ramchandraji, caused that to happen. When you light a fire, you don't see the fire, you know. You don't see the smoke. Bharat says, Ram is my fire. And if I appear visible to people, then I am just a product of the fire, which prefers to remain unseen. God has remained in the background, you know. Exam results just gone. Boy, I get so much ones, I get scholarship, and all that's good, all that's fine. But until the day it will dawn on the individual that my successes are more because my God of understanding and likeness. Until we reach that stage, then we're not educated, we're academic. Educated means it has to have a holistic approach. God has to be a part and parcel of the process. And I always, forget the eyes. But as As one who is in conversation periodically to the young ones, I'll tell you, yes, aim for scholarship, aim for this and for that. But you know what I want you to do? A true intellect. His or her peers have to call them or engage them in conversation in classes because they want to solicit an opinion from you on a matter. That is intellect. Yes, get this scholarship out. The day we could learn, we work and learn it so thoroughly and enjoy the ride, because knowledge of the map cannot equate the joy of the journey. It's not about results, it's about the joy of learning and education. The day we could engage our peers, that is the day. And it can only happen when we allow him to fortify us and put him before us, and he will carry us to that point. We hear further.
Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shankar Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shankar Ram.
Janav sada Bharat Kuldeepa, बार बार मोही कहे हूँ महीपा, कसे कनक मणि पा लिखी पाए, पुरुष परखिए समय सुभाए.
Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shankar Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shankar Ram.
Janav sada Bharat Kuldeepa, this Bharat, the Bharat which we should nurture in all of us. Kaushalya says, just as that physical Bharat was the light of the Raghukul, bar bar mohi kahe mahipa, Dasrat time and time again told Kaushalya that Bharat's character will stand the test of the anvil of challenges. Gold is tested on a jasper. That is what Kasi will mean here. Just like I think we are familiar with a blacksmith, we'll pound the iron and heat it. That's when it bring out the best in it. And Dasrat time and time again would tell Kaushalya that whenever Ayodhya is under threat or under challenge, or the very fabric, the moral fabric of Ayodhya is about to be decimated, Bharat will be the shining light. Bharat will be the savior. And so said, so done. Because in the absence of Sri Ram Chandra, what happened? You think Bharat went in Nandigram miles away and washed his hands from Ayodhya? No. He allowed Shatrughna to do the stewardship. But any major decisions, Bharat was consulted. And we'll say, well, Baba, going down a logical course here, obviously. Well, when Hanumanji took up Aushadhigiri, the mountain, who it is spotted first, who it is taught it could have been a Rakshas that will descend on Ayodhya was Bharat. So though he was in Nandigram, he was still the protector. As his father had said, when it comes to the crunch, gold will answer the call of the jasper. Bharat is like a jewel, and in the hands of the jewelers who are the bhaktas, the devotees of the world, he will be the shining example. Bhais Purusha Parakhe Samay Subhai. Bharat will come true when it counts. Because, Tulsidas had coined it differently in another part of Ayodhya Kand. He says, Bharat had a quality which we should all develop. If we take in the English alphabet, and I digress, but I'm relevant, on our website, SVVTT.com, we periodically put up articles. We have the calendar running there. There's an article now on why 108 in Sanatan Dharma. and SVVTT.com is not a one-man show. These are contributions from the school. But we come to the English side of it. If we take from A to Z, that is 26. A is 1, Z is 26. But let us say Z or Z, you prefer? Same thing, good. All right. So 1 to 26. So most times we ask ourselves, how you get through? I say, boy, I luck. Well, let me add now. L-U-C-K, when I go home, check it out. I 47. Then I say, boy, money does buy everything. Possible. Right? No, I don't want to get my gold brother with any libelous suit here, So money now, M-O-N-E-Y, you'll get 72. So it really look like money working more than luck. But the real thing is hard work. Hard work will add up to 98. But Bharat wasn't that. Bharat was attitude. Attitude will give you 100. Bharat's attitude to any challenge never crumble. If we profess to be Ganesh Bhakt, for instance, he is Vigna Vinayak. When it comes to obstacle, Nayak, he must be in front. It have people, there's great Hindu, great Ganesh devotee, and the first challenge comes, they go on behind, and they want to know, call yourself Ganesh Bhakt. Is the attitude to challenges, which Bharat remains a shining example. When Ayodhya was bereft of its Lord, not only its Lord, its heir apparent and God incarnate, when it is bereft of that type of divinity, Bharat stepped up to the plate. He didn't back out. And it's his attitude to challenges, as we should develop that part of the habits of Bharat, attitude to things, take it on. Come rain or storm, we are the front. So, Kaushalya says that this is the Bharat who has withstood the test of time. And in the midst of all that, Bharat retained his humility. That is an ingredient which we had to copy to. The very word Bharat, of all its meanings, Bha, rooted in Sanskrit, is Bhagwan. And Rat, like Rati to Kamdev, is love. Bharat's very name was love for God. He had that humility in him. Bharat had once said, Aha Dhanya Lakshman Bharabhagi Ram Para Ravinda Anuragi. He says, I envy the position of Lakshman. The Lakshman had 14 years to serve his feet. And look at me here. And this was the Bharat who was the virtual king of Ayodhya. He didn't have to undergo the hardships of the forest. And yet he says, if I could have exchanged, and he did make that pronouncement, I would have exchanged with Lakshman. The humility. So it's not, all the accolades that come our way. Is how we humbly take it, walk in the shoes of humility. We will be like Bharat, and that Kaushalya and Sunaina are pushing forward. Pattern ourselves in the characteristics of Bharat. If we don't, it's a situation for grief. Chaupai.
See
Anuchita aja kahab asamora. Kaushalya too. The fruit don't fall far from the tree. If Bharat was humble, he learnt it from his mother Kaushalya. She says, after we have barely visited the depth of the contribution of Kaushalya, here what she say, Anuchita aju kahab asamora. Today I may have spoken out of turn. I may not have spoken with profound backing and profound reference. Shoka saneha sayana pathora. It is because I might have been overtaken periodically with grief or periodically with love that I have for Bharat. Grief, Kaushalya, grief for Dasrat, when she was the one who admonished us how we have to deal with death, especially with a noble soul like Dasrat. But naturally, she is talking about the few restraints for Sanatana Dharma purposes when someone passes, the one who has performed the Mritakaram, the ceremonies for the departed, ought to have a stay of hand for any samskars. The samskars are the next topic up on Swadharma on Sankhya TV on Thursdays between 6:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. It's around the corner. We'll be talking about samskars, but samskars for quick knowledge is like wedding ceremony, like the Janev sanskar. So within 1 year, the performer of the Mritakaram should have a stay of hand in that, because remember, in the Varshik Shrad, in the yearly Shrad, just as we kept the fort for leading up to Shavin, Daskat and Bhandara, so too that Varshik Shrad is absolutely important at the point in time of reincarnation for those who have passed on. That is why it is to keep the focus, one has to keep the sanskars at bay. But we have a different styling. When someone dies, Pandits catch hell to restrain people from doing arati, They do the mother and father arati or ajan while they was alive, Or there were just a few smatterings of time when pushed by maybe the Pandit or so, they then do it now. But no man pardon, arati passing left, right, and center. And you know what the Shastras have said about arati to the dead? It is forbidden. Because a corpse, a shava, gives off poisonous and toxic gases, and one cannot bestow adulation to things like poisonous substances, so we refrain from arati. But it doesn't stop there. Shastra went on to tell you, those who have desecrated, conscientiously desecrated, having been instructed, forget if it wasn't instructed and they weren't privy to the knowledge, but having been instructed, we should not do that to vish, that is to poisonous substances. Then that act of arati, when done for a protracted period of time, becomes futile. When you go on before the puja room and doing it, it's null and void till the sanctity of arati is restored after a certain time. Kaushalya didn't fall long and do arati when Dasrat passed on. She didn't get into these mundane practices. She was Gyan incarnate. It was not about emotion. It's about what is shastric sound. That's how we have to be guided. And she says, well, that is as far as grief, she wasn't pulled in by grief. She had her balance. And sneha, love, yes, she had love for Bharat. She had love for Ram. She had love for Sita. So she says, maybe I am drawn in by love. And boy, did she have love for Sita Mata. There was a being that was in Ayodhya, disappearing and appearing, disappearing and appearing. And when things go by, they have to go to Guru. So they went to Guru Vasishta. And when he checked, he says, what's going on here? It is because Sita Devi, that divine Devi, has not yet been allowed to be a member of the household. If she becomes a member of the household, then this is not going to happen. So it was asked, well, how she become a member of the household? Dasrat says, just allow her to do a chona. Right? Well, I tell you, I sing for the supper of modern day daughters. Because the Katha tell you, mother-in-law shouldn't walk daughter-in-law. In local parlance, Well, then them go live like princess, boy. So when they brought it to Kaushalya, she says, I'll have none of it. Sita Devi in her young, tender age, and she was young and tender. She ain't going to do no kind of hard work here. They went back to the Dasharatha and said, okay, listen. You see when the diya outing and the batti going down, let's just pull up the batti a little bit. And hesitatingly, Kaushalya allowed her to do that, and from that day, problem solved. This was the kind of intense love that Kaushalya, the mother-in-law, had for the daughter-in-law. And this era of vendetta and vengeance between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law have to be, it has to abate, it has to take back seat, because we can't profess to be Hindus and don't attempt to follow those high examples of those who have gone before us. So, love, yes, she had intense love, but kartavya, or duty, as she told Ram Chandraji, duty trumps all. You had to go into the forest. Final doha. Kaushalya ka dheera dhari sunahu devi mithilesh ko vivek nidhi vallabhi tumhi sakaya upadesh siyapati ramchandra ki jai umapati mahadev ki jai pavan sita hanuman ki jai vrindavan krishna chandra ki jai pulisa jagagnath ki jai bolo bhai sab santan ki jai siyapati ramchandra ki jai sharanam. The art of speaking. Kaushalya kaha dheera dhari, stabilizing her senses further. Sunahu Devi Mithilesh, Kaushalya turns to Sunaina. She wants to ensure that whatever was said was not done hastily and did not cause any hurt. Ko viveka nidhi ballabhi. You have vivek, you have the power of discernment. You have the power to know when somebody has an agenda and don't have an agenda. You know these things, and you would have known that I came to you. I depend on that quality of yours, that I came to you to just let you know that what happened in Ayodhya was the decree of karma. It was fashioned, shaped, and put into practice, into action by KK, who has to be kalankarahit, who has to be blameless in the entire episode. I have to remind you, and I know you know, that bhakti, love, that pervaded all the denizens of Ayodhya, along with those who were in the royal chambers. And as far as Gyan is concerned, I have given to you, as far as my capacity will allow, Tumahi Sakai Upadeshe, you being the dear one to a person like Janak, because among the great qualities of Janak, he was known as Videha. Though living in a palace, he was totally detached from the trappings of power and the trappings of material comforts. That is the spouse, you were his spouse, it rubbed off on you, so I know I can rely on you, that what I have said to you has gone in the right vein, has been taken in the appropriate manner. As far as Bharat is concerned, as far as Kaushalya is concerned, it was bhakti, it was jnana. Too many times, if we have to copy Kaushalya, if we have to get spiritual wisdom, it's satsang we have to stick in. And if we have to have or get hanker after devotion, that noblest of noble qualities, then we have to follow the katha of Bharat. But equally following the katha of Bharat, equally establishing love for God, we also have to allow it to translate in how we behave. The parting message of a guru to a chelas, he says, you have learned. You have sat in satsang, you have been under my tutelage. Now let me give you your final class. So he carried them out minutes before 3. You know, that's the time school will finish, school bell will ring, and you know, these little boys very prankish, they will come and they do all sorts of things. So Guruji carried them and hid them in the bushes. That is his chela, his entire retinue. He kept them hidden in the bushes, tell them keep quiet, observe. So school ring, they were close by to a tamarind tree that had fruits. And the Guru says, observe. And all little boys, they came and take little sticks and stones and they pelt and they brought down tamarind. They come, well, tamarind is a nice thing, you know. So they pick up one or two and leave the balance. That was fun. And they go on the way. After they had gone the way, the Guru says, come, observe what has happened, and this is my final lesson to you. So many answers were proffered. Some say, well, they waste. Some say, why they beat the tree and the tree giving fruit and all that. The Guru says, good, but I am still searching for the answer. And when they were out of answers, the Guru says, look, bring me a ripe tamarind and bring me a green tamarind. The students did that. He says, look at the green tamarind. Whatever struck it, whatever missile struck it, the shell cracked, but it hit the inside. Look at the ripe tamarind. Wherever it get hit, the shell hit the inside. He said, nice lesson to you. People will hurl pebbles, stones, rocks, defame character or attempt to defame character. Don't be a ripe tamarind. Don't let what they say about you benchmark you. That can be. They're not in a position to benchmark you. Don't be a ripe tamarind. Don't let what them say hurt you, hurt the inside you, who's fashioning, molding to have bhakti for God. Don't allow those external things to affect him or her. He says, I want you to be like a green tamarind. Because in the sojourn of life, people willingly and, in contrived manner will look to assassinate our character, to demean and to debase us. So be it. That's your opinion. You're entitled, or you, or whoever, in our quest for acquiring or for molding us to become devotees of God. Be like the green tamarind. Ek baar bolo, Siyawara Ramachandra ki